Well, it's a war crime, and we didn't play any Republicans, but there were plenty of them that have been talking about, like John Yoo, who was the architect of the Bush 9/11 response, was talking about this as well, that if there are people who are shipwrecked, which is what these two survivors were.
Survivors?
They survived the first strike.
They're not survivors.
Okay.
What you just witnessed with Jessica's explanation here is Democrats in search of their next hoax, their next scandal. Let me break this down for you.
John
Yoo, all the time,
Democrat
and Trump administration won. No, he was referring to the fact the laws of war as if the Washington Post story was true. The Washington Post story.
You'll be stunned by what lies at the heart of this media frenzy. It all starts with a Washington Post article claiming to detail war crimes committed during military operations, written in language so dramatic it practically leaps off the page. Enter Kayleigh McEnany stepping in like only she can, calling out the possibility that these claims may be wildly exaggerated.
This is about the left getting all hot and bothered about another hoax is absolutely ludicrous.
Can I just ask you one question?
Actually. You already asked me a question. No, I insist.
What happens if we hit a terrorist and the terrorist survives? We're supposed to send a helicopter to rescue him and then give him first aid?
We know that this isn't a hoax because
no?
The best case scenario is that Admiral Bradley, who they're trying to put all the blame on, is the one who authorized the second lethal strike that took out these people who, again, in violation of the law that they were killed. We also know that the U.S. doesn't always do this because there was another strike in the Caribbean back in September where a Colombian and an Ecuadorian person survived, and we repatriated them home. We didn't even take them to court here for the crimes that we knew that they committed. We sent them back to their home country. There is tons of reporting now. You want to call the Washington Post fake news that time. The New York Times story, by the way, didn't exonerate them. Problem is the story is changing every 10 minutes. It went from fake news to the frog shooting narco-terrorists to, it is not changing at all. Actually, once you let me talk, it's completely consistent. Now it's Admiral Bradley's fault, and I presume that he's getting lawyered up right now.
Prediction, nothing will come of this.
Yeah.
This was a disaster in the making. Fox News, known for its hard-hitting takes, jumped right in. McEnany dissected the Washington Post article, questioning its accuracy and sparking a fiery clash between conservative and liberal perspectives.
Yeah. So let me break it down because we dealt with this in Trump administration 1. Buried down in the Washington Post story is the Department of Defense saying that the story is completely false. So you say, okay, what's the Washington Post going on? They say they talked to 7 people familiar with the situation. You're like, oh, whoa, 7 people agreed on this? That's huge. That's a lot of people. Oh, wait. Well, 2 people said there was a second strike. There was a second strike. We know that. You get down to brass tacks. They have one source. According to one source, the order was to kill everybody. One source. So on one source, the Washington Post runs with the story. Then you bring in the New York Times. The New York Times spoke to 5 people familiar with the matter. What did the 5 people say? Each official said Mr. Hegseth's directive did not specifically address what should happen if a first missile turned out not to fully accomplish all of the things. As the operation unfolded, they said Hegseth did not give any further orders to the effect of what the Washington Post said. So it's debunked by 5 sources at the New York Times. The Washington Post runs with one story, and then you have the Democrat, you have the left, you have Jessica swooping in, saying, this is a big scandal, let's impeach, this is the anatomy of a hit job, we saw it all the time 4 years ago.
Be sure to hit the subscribe button if you want to stay updated on stories like this. It's the best way to keep up with the moments that truly fascinate me. You won't want to miss these wild rides. Now, let's dive in. It all started with the Washington Post report on military operations against suspected narco-terrorists, suggesting that some actions might even qualify as war crimes. Democrats jumped on the narrative immediately, but that's when Kayleigh McEnany stepped in. On Fox News, she tackled the claims with her signature tenacity, highlighting how mainstream media could be twisting the facts for political gain.
Admiral Bradley, who is in charge of the military operations in this theater, testified before Congress in a closed, classified setting, and he told them something very simple about this boat strike from September the 2nd that everyone is talking about. He told them he made the decision to strike the boat multiple times with the full consultation of a military lawyer and in accordance with lawful orders from the Commander-in-Chief and the Secretary of Defense. Bradley said there was no, quote, kill them all order given by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. That's what the Democrats and some in the media have claimed, that Hegseth gave a kill them all order. Bradley, under oath, said that did not happen. There are no illegal orders. There is no unlawful attempt to murder 2 poor fishermen clinging to a shipwreck. There are just narco-terrorists, their drugs, and the president's determination to stop them from flooding our country with that poison. Now, the New York Times, of all places, came along and debunked the initial erroneous report from the Washington Post, which is now parroted by Democrats all over the country, that something unlawful was done on this strike. Even ABC News has now come along to debunk this nonsense. What Mark Kelly wanted you to believe was that the president and his Secretary of Defense had given unlawful orders, and then he invented, out of whole cloth, with complicit reporters at the Washington Post, this supposed order to kill 2 unarmed people hanging off the side of a bombed-out boat. It did not happen. There's just an attempt here to build a false narrative around this, specifically by Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona, and it is absolutely...
All right, picture this. A sensational story goes viral across multiple platforms, fueled by a major news outlet. That's exactly what we saw here. According to Kayleigh McEnany, both the Washington Post and the New York Times were quick to assign blame without sufficient proof. She pointed out that these reports lack the necessary reliability to make such serious accusations. It's like opening a Pandora's box when it comes to how some media outlets operate. A prime example of selective reporting. McEnany dug deeper and uncovered some striking details. The Post claims about the second strike approved by Admiral Bradley relied on just a handful of sources, sometimes only a single key source in a critical area. After further investigation, the New York Times found that the Post story wasn't fully supported by its own sources. In fact, the Times could identify at least 5 individuals with knowledge of the case, and what they revealed was far less sensational than the Post had suggested. Even the alleged kill them all command seemed to vanish under scrutiny. It makes you wonder, what exactly are these media outlets trying to achieve? The reporting sparked backlash, echoing the original claims from the Post, with real consequences for reputations and public perception of military operations. McEnany emphasized the danger of such stories. When military ethics are questioned, critics at home and abroad jump at the chance to sensationalize scandal. She framed it as part of a broader strategy, an effort to tarnish conservative reputations by hunting for the next explosive headline. And let's be honest, this isn't exactly new. It's a familiar cycle repeated again and again in today's media landscape.
I do not believe anybody that is shouting right now actually cares about those people, okay? They didn't care about the gangs when they were here. They didn't care about the women being trafficked or the kids being attacked or the rapes, or they didn't care about the victims of recidivism. They didn't even care about the victims that we talked about for years, women being thrown in front of the subway trains. They only care about victims when it becomes political expedient, when they see an election approaching. They don't know. Suddenly they're experts on war crimes. They all went on AI and went like, what's a war crime? Could this really happen? You know, I do not believe they care. I refuse to invest any amount of caring on those people on the boat because they are terrorists. If you have not developed the hoax instincts after the last 10 years, and your reflex is still to say, wow, this sounds really bad, you need a reverse lobotomy. Let's compare a story that harms, say, the Trump administration versus one that harms the left. Okay, when a story suddenly erupts around Trump, it's taken as fully realized, structurally sound, a seasoned oak of facts. Meanwhile, the Minneapolis corruption scheme has been emerging for 3 years. We were screaming about the border for 4. We were talking about the trans issue. Nobody was. We're talking about real stories that didn't become real to Democrats until they lost an election. It's never about concerns for people. Oh, it's only political. This story was so flimsy. Even Mark Kelly was reluctant to say it was a crime because he knew what he was going to say was a matter of opinion in a gray area. From a common sense perspective, it'd be great to kill a terrorist while he's terrorizing. But what are the odds of that? He's either running to terrorize or running.
You'd think there's a coordinated effort to divert attention from real issues by taking stories with just a skeleton of truth and padding them with claims that barely hold up, McEnany stated. The goal, she argues, is to sway public opinion against Trump's decisions by presenting unverified or even unreliable material as fact. Senator Mark Kelly added to the political pressure by raising public concerns over alleged military mistakes. Naturally, it's his job to ask questions, but when McEnany and others highlight how shaky the facts really are, it becomes clear that there may be more theatrics than genuine concern for the truth. So, what about you? How do we separate content that's genuinely important from stories dressed up for clicks and viral attention? This situation underscores the importance of examining sources carefully. These dramatic reports don't just inform, they shape public perception. McEnany points out that such sensational stories can distract from the real issues. We're left asking, were the strikes genuine mistakes, or is the narrative around them a distortion meant to undermine military operations against serious threats? McEnany is navigating a delicate line here, protecting military integrity while resisting the spread of false information. She warns that the nation's security and the military's reputation are at stake. Her review of recent Fox News segments highlights the tension between exposing misconduct and avoiding sensationalism that could erode national resolve. Isn't trust then just as vital in this media circus as politics itself? I want to hear from you. Did the Washington Post go too far, or was this a necessary check on political and military power? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice is what keeps this conversation alive, so let's continue it together.